The morning air smelled of wet earth and old memories as Daniel Hargrove drove down the long dirt road that led to the farm he had abandoned 12 years ago. He had not come back for sentiment. He had come back for money. Life in the city had grown expensive. The debts had piled higher than he could manage, and the only thing left in his name was this crumbling piece of land in the middle of nowhere, land he had walked away from after his brother. Marcus died in a farming accident, land that had once meant everything and then, in a single terrible afternoon, had come to mean nothing but grief. His lawyer had arranged the sale. All Daniel had to do was sign a few papers, hand over the keys to the new buyer, and drive away forever. It was supposed to be simple. It was supposed to take 2 hours. But as his truck crested the small hill and the farmhouse came into view, Daniel's foot slipped off the accelerator and the vehicle rolled to a slow, disbelieving stop. The farm was alive. The fields, which he had left overgrown and broken, were neatly planted with rows of corn stretching to the tree line. The old fence, which had been rotting and collapsed in several places, had been repaired and painted white. Flower beds lined the path to the front porch, and smoke was rising gently from the chimney. Someone was living here. Someone had been living here. Daniel stepped out of the truck slowly, his heart hammering in his chest, one hand gripping the door as if he might need something solid to hold on to. He walked up the path, his boots crunching on the gravel, and just as he raised his fist to knock on the front door, it swung open, and the world fell out from under him. Standing in the doorway, older and thinner, with a beard that had come in silver at the edges and a scar running along his left jaw that had not been there before, was Marcus, his dead brother, his buried brother. The man he had wept over at a graveside 12 years ago was standing in front of him holding a cup of coffee and wearing worn overalls, looking at Daniel with an expression that held equal parts guilt and relief. Daniel could not speak. His mouth opened and closed like a man drowning in open air. Marcus reached out and gripped Daniel's arm firmly, and that touch, warm and real and undeniably human, broke something loose inside. Daniel's chest that released itself as a strangled sob. "I'm alive," Marcus said quietly. "I know I owe you more than those 2 words. Come inside." The story Marcus told over the kitchen table was one that took an hour to finish and left. Daniel cycling through grief and rage and confusion before anything else could settle. The accident had been real, a tractor rollover that had left Marcus with a shattered leg, internal bleeding, and a fractured memory. But what no one knew was that Marcus had crawled to the road, been found by a passing truck driver, and treated at a hospital 2 counties over under a false name because, in his confused and injured state, he had given the wrong information, and no one had connected him to the missing man, whose family had already been told he was gone. By the time Marcus had recovered enough to understand what had happened, months had passed. His funeral had been held. Daniel had already sold the animals and packed his bags for the city. Marcus had called twice, but Daniel had changed his number in the fog of mourning, and the calls had never connected. And then, instead of finding another way to reach out, Marcus had made a decision that he knew was wrong even as he made it. He had come back to the farm, quietly, and begun rebuilding it, telling himself he would reach Daniel eventually, telling himself tomorrow and then the next day, until tomorrow had become 12 years. "I was ashamed," Marcus said, his voice breaking on the word. "Not of surviving, of letting you believe I was gone. Every year it got harder to explain. I kept thinking you'd moved on and me coming back would only reopen the wound." Daniel sat in silence for a long moment, staring at his hands on the table. Then he looked up at his brother, his living, breathing, impossibly present brother, and said, "You were wrong. You were completely wrong. And I am so glad you were here when I came back." The farm did not sell that day. Instead, the 2 brothers walked the fields together until the sun went down, talking about everything and nothing, filling in 12 lost years one story at a time. The debts could be figured out. A new buyer could wait. Some things, once recovered, are worth far more than anything a signature on a paper could ever give you, and for Daniel Hargrove, the greatest fortune he had ever found was the one he had come back to let go of. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner Stories, because every story shared is a kindness passed on.